All right. What's up? Welcome into the program. It is Thursday, 4/20, 2023, April 20th. Brendan Glasheen joined by Jeff Pratt joining us on the show today. Welcome, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for stopping by. Of
Thanks for having me, guys.
course, Gary and Thorne is here. He's one of our mainstays at this hour. We are the Slate. We take you up until 6 o'clock-ish. So we got you for the next 40 minutes. We're going to dive into a lot of basketball first, and then we will work our way to Major League Baseball. So Gary's got some plays there, but both of these guys are hoop heads. They can talk basketball. 3-game slate, starting with the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. Brooklyn is home in these game 3 scenarios. The road team that opened on the road, of course, is now home for these next couple. So Brooklyn's home, Golden State's home, the Clippers are home. Couple 2-0 series, and Phoenix and LA now tied 1-1. Gary and Thorne, I'll go to you first. We can jump back and forth. DFS, DraftKings Sportsbook. Take it whatever direction you like. What's a play that jumps out to you, a game that jumps out to you because you like the game script, you like the situation? I know those 2 late Western Conference games are really, they're captivating for a lot of reasons, and we'll get to all of them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we can just kind of get Philadelphia, Brooklyn out of the way, I guess.
I like that idea. That's not a bad idea. Okay. Cool.
I'll say like a general blanket statement for DFS. Not exactly reinventing the wheel here, but pretty ugly spot for anyone aside from like Joel Embiid. Just not the sort of game environment you want to attack in DFS. You might get a lot of variance with like a net stack or something. There's maybe something to be said for that. They've missed a lot of wide open shots. This is the classic. If this series is going to end in a gentleman's sweep, generally speaking, it's game 3 that the underdogs are able to take. But my favorite bet in this game, one of my favorite bets on this slate, if I'm being perfectly honest, is a bet that's already hit twice in this series, which is just the under on the Nets team total. It is set at 102.5. To recap, they scored 101 points in game 1, and that was after, I believe they had, 40 points after 15 minutes. And then the 76ers decided they were going to play some defense and shut them down, and then only scored 84 points in game 2 of this series. Obviously, there's some regression to the mean that's likely going to happen here in terms of their shooting numbers. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, this series is glacially paced. It is only averaging 90.8 possessions per 48 minutes, far and away the slowest series of the 8 we have currently taking place. It's just so ridiculously slow that even if the Nets start hitting some shots, I just don't think they're going to be able to get to this number. And it comes down to, again, a really layman's way of thinking about playoff basketball, but it's held true through 2 games, which is, yes, the Nets have a lot of depth. Yes, the Nets have some shooting, but if you don't have a go-to guy in the half court when things really slow down in the playoffs, and they have slowed down significantly, as I mentioned in this series, it's hard to score 5-on-5 in April and in May. So I like Spencer Dinwiddie to a point. I like Mikal Bridges to a point, but those are not number 1 options. They're not even really number 2 options on a playoff team if you're squinting hard enough. There's a reason they've had trouble scoring, and I think that takes place again tonight.
Brooklyn and Philadelphia, both just shy of 91 possessions per game. Cleveland, New York is sort of close, but yeah, to Gary's point, if you look at pace across these playoffs, it's rather slow, which that does happen when you get to this point. There's more whistles, more half-court offense, and that's to be said about teams like the Grizzlies, like who just need to figure out how to play another way besides up and down. Now, that did work out the other night against the Lakers, but anywho, that's makes sense based on how these teams are built stylistically. So team total team total Brooklyn Nets under 102.5. Jeff, anything from, we'll stay on this game for now. Philadelphia, Brooklyn, anything that jumps out to you DFS sportsbook related?
Yeah, I think we're just going to keep talking about unders. And quickly, I would like to say I love that pick from Gary, just because watching this Brooklyn Nets offense try to operate in the half court, I think, Gary, you might have been a little too kind, to be honest. Spencer Dinwiddie I think you said he was fine to an extent. I can't watch it. It is so painful to watch. And Mikal Bridges, great player, obviously has far exceeded expectations for Nets fans post Kevin Durant trade. And he's really elevated into that pseudo number one option for them. But in the half court, it is so painful. It tends to just be 5-out basketball where guys are just running around, passing the rock. They're not even really setting off ball screens. It's just 5-out, move it. We'll see if we can find someone who's partially open for a shot and we'll take it. And I think that one guy who has benefited from that is Cam Johnson. Now his points prop, when I checked earlier, is at 16.5. I think that
Still
sounds
there.
about right
Still
for
there.
him. Still there. I think that's about right. If you wanted to look at some parlay action here and take him at an alternate at 15 plus, I feel a little more comfortable at that. But in reality, I'm just looking at more unders here. And a bet that I have been taking that has hit twice is Joel Embiid under points. And today he's at under 30.5. He was at under 32.5 last game. He didn't even come close. This just is not a series where Joel Embiid is going to be incredibly productive. The Nets want the ball out of his hands. They're doubling him at pretty much every chance. They're making other guys produce and just shading him away from the play pretty much. Now, James Harden was a significant beneficiary of that in game one. And then the guys just decided not to play basketball in game two and barely showed up. Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris obviously did a little more. It's just hard to figure out which one of these next guys up for Philadelphia is going to show up on a game-to-game basis. But what I will say is that Joel Embiid under is something I am consistent and confident in. And I think that if you're a Philadelphia 76ers fan, it's not fun to watch. None of these games are fun to watch. You can probably turn off the TV the rest of this series. You don't need to watch it because Philly's going to win. They're going to move on. But we've had a problem with Joel Embiid with fatigue as the playoffs have gone on throughout the years. So this is pretty much best case scenario for him because we've got a matchup looming with the Boston Celtics who have owned them historically in the playoffs in the next round. So if Embiid can get through these games playing, 30 to 35 minutes, not really getting heavily involved and having to do a lot of heavy lifting, but the Sixers are still winning, that's best case scenario for him, even if it's not fun to watch or fun to bet on for an over. So I think under 30.5 points for him is my best bet for this matchup.
Would you say on Johnson over or under?
I would, if we're taking a parlay, I think 15 plus alternate, I believe it was like minus 230 earlier, is something I'd be a little more confident in. Over 16.5. He should get there. He's gone there in both of his games. I think he's had 28 and 18 in the two games of this series. Obviously, he was really good in game two. That being said, it's, anything can happen with these guys. It feels like this could be a game for Mikal Bridges to take on a little bit more of the scoring role after he was just way too passive in game two.
Yeah, at minus 175, 14.5. Our friend, our
14.5.
colleague, Julian Edlow on his best bets right up for tonight's slate. He's actually got a similar boat to you, a same game parlay, but he's got Johnson's 3-point field goals prop over 2.5 made threes with the over 14.5. So I guess, those two correlate based on what he does from a productivity standpoint, takes 3-pointers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So you're cool with that too? This is a perfect opportunity if you want to bash Edlow for the second leg. But if you think
I'm not going to bash Julian. I think that's a good pick. I can't bash a guy who's always on his phone on the broadcast like we were talking about. He's got the live lines. He's sharper than all of us. So, I would listen to him and read his write-ups on a daily basis.
wow, that's how you take the high road right there.
I know.
Okay, that's enough of Nets and Sixers. Sixers lead the series 2-0. Lot to unpack in these next two. Golden State, Sacramento. Warriors are without Draymond Green. Do either of you have a developing thought on the suspension? Or are we kind of over it? Just Joe Dumars just doesn't seem to like Draymond Green. I think that's pretty much been an established story at this point. Is anyone
weird? There's some weird Dumars Kings connections that you can really get in the weeds on if you want to. I thought it was a little interesting just the way he sort of brought up past history.
Yep.
This is something we tend to see more in the NHL playoffs than the NBA playoffs, when sort of the reputation of a player and their history of possibly doing questionable things on the ice is brought up more than questionable things on the basketball court. But if that is truly the parameters they were using, I don't know. I was kind of on the fence about whether or not it was going to be a suspension. So if that's the way they're classifying these things now, I can kind of see how they got there. But believe me, if you want to poke holes in this as a Warriors fan, go right ahead. There's a lot of ways to do it.
It was a little weird too, right? Because wasn't Joe Dumars a mentor to Draymond Green too? So a little, I saw something like that they have had, positive connections in the past at least. So a little weird. Obviously, he's got the Kings connection there too, but just the entire situation in whole is, I'm not sure that we should be suspending guys in what is now a must-win postseason game for the Warriors because of past history. Now, if you come out and say, hey, he stomped on a guy, like, I'm going to suspend you because of that. Now, that I would understand. But if one of your main reasons is because he's done stuff like this in the past, I'm not really happy with that, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's when he got suspended in 2016 when they played LeBron and the Cavs in the finals. I thought he was kind of asking for it. That was sort of that was sort of a knee jerk. Now the actual action
it was almost literally a knee jerk.
Yeah, that's true. Great point. Yeah. Well, anywho, okay. So look, Draymond's out. Huge part of just their whole DNA, like narrative stuff. Offensively, the way he moves the ball, how they set up their stuff.
I mean, to your point, like I think this is one thing I really wanted to bring up about this game, because I think I'm just as like notorious for doing this recently, sort of like just bypassing Draymond Green's effectiveness and sort of just maybe forgetting how important he actually is and remains for the Warriors. Like this is a stat not from 5 years ago. This is a stat from the regular season this year. And yes, it speaks somewhat to how awful the Warriors bench has played. That's part of this. But the Warriors have been 13.1 points per 100 possessions better with Draymond Green on the floor than off the floor. That is a significant on-off split. Like this guy, sure, he shoots like he's wearing a backpack. He's lost a step or 2 or 7, but he is still very important to what the Warriors do.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's kind of where I was going with this. So that said, they have a great home record, and he's a big part of that. What? Okay, you tell me, Garion, why are they laying? I know, must win. You're back home. Kings are young. Are they ready for the moment? 6.5 points.
Seems crazy.
And money and the people, the public all over Golden State, despite Draymond's absence.
I mean, we've talked about the lines in this series a lot the past week, and just how this is one of those really weird examples of just how a team's history has affected lines more than the very recent history we've seen on the basketball court, and it's played out to the Kings' advantage so far. I'm just going to go back to the Kings, I think, at plus 6.5. Look, if you think the Warriors are going to win this game, I can get behind that stance. This is a lot of these guys, 4-time NBA champions, or the key guys anyway, 4-time NBA champions, knowing they have to step up in this spot. They've obviously been much better at home this season. They've been on the road, though that's not a high bar to clear. But the Kings have been a fantastic road team this season, particularly at covering. Not only, I think they were 27-14 ATS on the road this season, they were 8-2 ATS their last 10 games against opponents that had a winning record at home. So they beat good teams even when those teams are at home, or at least cover against them. I mean, yeah, Sabonis, it was
27-14 on the road in the 27-14 on the road in the regular season, the best cover rate in the NBA for any road team.
I mean, there you go. And the Knicks were also pretty good. So that's a pretty significant thing to be the best at. Yeah, like I said, Sabonis is playing. He said as much today. Like, I'm really trying. I'm having a hard time figuring out why you wouldn't take the Kings plus 6.5 here.
Jeff, you got thoughts? I mean, you lay it all out there. I know Golden State's been good at home, but it's a pretty giant. I mean, this is, you're getting counting 3-pointers. You're getting 2 possessions with Sacramento here.
I completely agree with Gary. And I might even take it a step further. If anyone watching this watches the sweat in the morning, I've been on the Kings entire time in the series. I said they were going to win it when the public was all over the Warriors before it started. I said they were going to win game 1 when the public was all over them, game 2, etc. We can keep going on. And I'm on Sacramento again in this one. I think it just makes way too much sense. I think plus 6.5 is way too much. And, you could buy a couple points, get them at plus 9.5 at minus 170 if you want to parlay that with something else too. Like it just makes too much sense. And I might even go the other way. I think there's some value to be had taking them on the money line tonight at what? Plus 215 right now. I think that just from a pure logic standpoint, this is a better basketball team than the Golden State Warriors. They have shown that through the first 2 games of the series. They've shown that all year in terms of their consistency, not only at home, but on the road, as you guys have talked about. They have the best road record in the West. They're one of only 2 teams in that conference with an above 500 away record. And, they know how to get it done. They've seen this team twice now, and they've been able to weather the storm. I think that was the main concern with this Kings team is, hey, we haven't been to the playoffs in 17 years. We need to make sure that we can actually win a game. And not only did they win that, they won the first game, and then they won the second game, and they shut them down defensively, which really impressed me. Over on DK Live, I took a look at Sacramento's defensive strategy against the Warriors in a game film breakdown, and what they did to get the ball out of Steph Curry's hands, put it in other players' hands that are uncomfortable in those positions, and make them make plays. It's a really simple strategy, but it was really effective. And shocker, the ball that the guy that the ball was going to in those situations mostly was Draymond Green, and even he was turning it over. So who is it going to be now? Are you going to Andrew Wiggins? Likely he's going to see a spike in usage, and even he's not a great ball handler. We saw him make plenty of mistakes over the course of the first 2 games of this series. Do you go to, Kevon Looney more off the double slip into the high post? And Kevon Looney's a great player, but you don't want to have to rely on him to make the right decision in terms of winning a basketball game. So I look at this team and I say, if Curry doesn't go for 35, if Klay doesn't go for 35, like not necessarily both of them, but if one of them doesn't have a monster game, I'm not sure they can beat this Kings team. And I do think the Warriors will eventually pick up one, and it'll probably be game 4 if they drop this one, because they've got too much pride as the defending champions to get swept. But this is a very winnable game for the Kings. And I think that Domantas Sabonis hasn't even taken advantage of the biggest mismatch in this series, which is the size and strength he's got on Kevon Looney and what he had on Draymond Green. I mean, the guy had 16 rebounds in the first game, but he wasn't great offensively. He was much better in the second game, but he only had 9 rebounds in game 2. If he can manage to put both of those 2 things together, have a 15-15 game, it's going to open up a lot more for their other shooters. Malik Monk has been an incredible X factor for them. They just have more depth than the Warriors. They played better than them. They can get it done.
I'd imagine Sabonis at 9K on DraftKings would be a good option tonight as a stud that's on the cheaper side when you look at the guys ahead of him. I mean, I think it was a great point by you, Jeff, about Joel Embiid being the most expensive player. He hasn't had to be all that dominant. I mean, he'll put numbers up. Like he had 15 rebounds in the first half the other night in game 2. I'm pretty sure, or he's at least early in the game. Yeah. He was in double-digit boards. Just so from a stat padding perspective for a fantasy lineup, I would imagine that's a good thing. But are you getting full max value for that steep price? So I want to ask Sabonis as a DFS piece, and then flip side, Jonathan Kuminga played 10 minutes the other night, 8 points, no rebounds, turned the ball over a couple times. Does Anthony Lamb, Vermont's own Anthony Lamb, get minutes? JaMychal Green? Like, is there anybody from just a reaching at the bottom of the barrel for some of the anything from a DFS perspective with the Draymond thing that jumps out to you guys, Garion?
Yeah, I think the Warriors rotation is going to be really interesting because I don't necessarily think it's going to be a spot where they just turn to another like Draymond Green type body.
Mm-hmm.
I think more likely than anything, Gary Payton's just going to get a ton of minutes and they're going to go super small.
Yeah.
I think, look, Payton's getting more minutes than Jordan Poole anyway in this series. You might see Jonathan Kuminga. I would honestly think that maybe even someone like JaMychal Green is probably going to be the person they turn to in the second unit. He's just a little bit more reliable, a little steadier, but this is one of those situations, and it's not one the Warriors have been in all that often, but this is a must-win game. They're not going to win this series if they lose a game at home and go down 3-0 and then have to win, not only 4 straight, but literally 2 games on the road, something they've struggled to do all season long. I think you're seeing heavy minutes from Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, Looney, Peyton. Like, I think all 4 of those guys probably, or all 5, excuse me, probably play at least 40 minutes apiece. So at that point, hunting for value, even without Draymond Green, is probably a pretty fruitless task just because they're going to max out those guys.
Okay, good point. Jeff, anything to add?
No, I agree with that. I was going to say, I think if you're going to pay up for Steph Curry, now is the time to pay up for Steph Curry. He's less than 10K. It's not like he's incredibly expensive, but they need elite production from him. I wouldn't be shocked if the guy takes nearly 30 shots tonight. And not only that, as I mentioned, when Steph was deliberating from a playmaking perspective, the ball was going to Draymond Green. So he's going to have to take on even more of an onus there and really get active. We could see, a 35-10 game from him. And that might not even be enough for the Warriors to win this game, but he's going to have to handle a huge workload tonight. And then Clay is what he is. I mean, if he's making his shots, he's going to put up fantasy points, but if he's not, it's going to be a dud. So you obviously run the risk there. And this is an important spot for him. He's been pretty clutch throughout his career. So I would expect him to have a good performance, but I think I completely agree with Gary, and I think that Curry at 9.7K is 100% the move.
So it seems and we'll go to the last playoff game. We'll work in some baseball in the last couple minutes. Phoenix Clippers. Seems the market has not, I don't want to say corrected itself, but it hasn't overreacted to what the Clippers did in game 1, because the Clippers are getting 7.5 points at home. Now I know Phoenix won game 2. But now the Clippers are going back to Los Angeles, getting 7.5 points. And the way they finished game 1 was pretty remarkable. They had a double-digit lead late in the second quarter, and then bam, quick run, and it's a tie ball game at the end of the first half. So for a game and a half, the Clippers have looked pretty good in this series, and then the Suns put their foot down in the second half. What are our takes on Clippers Suns game 3 tied 1-1 going to Los Angeles, Garion? And the money's coming in, by the way, on Phoenix. The 89% of the money's on Phoenix.
Yeah, and I'm sure that swayed pretty significantly when we got the Kawhi news. I guess it was about an hour and a half ago now. It's really tough to envision a scenario where the Clippers keep this game close. I mean, they are a deep team. That is something we've said about the Clippers quite a bit. But you almost become, I don't want to say the Nets, let's say like a rich man's Brooklyn Nets, when you lose Paul George and Kawhi Leonard off this team. Like, yeah, you've got 9 or 10 guys who should be in an NBA rotation, but Russell Westbrook is now going to be your linchpin piece. Russell Westbrook's going to be the guy who's taking a ton of shots in this game. I know he's driven by spite as a human being, and Kevin Durant is on the other side. Chris Paul is on the other side, but man, it's going to take a Herculean performance for them to, again, even stick around, I think, with this Suns team. I would be very comfortable just betting the Suns minus 7.5. If you want to play the props game, I'm not above just milking the Westbrook narrative here. I mean, his usage rate increased, I believe, almost 5 percentage points without George, without Kawhi on the court. His points, rebounds, and assist total is set at 36.5. Or at least it was a half hour ago. Seems like a pretty good spot to take the over. He went over that number in game 2. He did not go over the number in game 1. However, he had, I believe, 19 or 18 combined rebounds and assists in that contest. He just happened to go 3 for 19 from the field. I'm not saying he's definitely going to shoot better than that. He's Russell Westbrook. But when someone has that kind of volume offensively, I think his usage rate is probably going to be hovering around 35% tonight. So seems like a pretty easy total for him to go over. And if you want to have a little bit more fun, Westbrook to record a triple-double is plus 550.
And for perspective on the Kawhi Leonard news, the knee sprain, he's out. The line opened at 2.
Mm-hmm.
Suns minus 2. And now it's 7.5. So I'm not sure if that had moved because some action came in. I'd imagine it moved at least a basket, right? A 3-point field goal. Like, Kawhi Leonard's worth that much.
I think it might have been at like 2.5 when the news.
Yeah,
I think it was at 2.5
significantly because of Kawhi. Obviously.
5 points. Okay. Jeff Pratt, thoughts with no Kawhi, any sniff for the Clippers, or what's the angle to play with no Kawhi Leonard?
Oh man. I mean, the Suns are going to win this game. And if they don't, then maybe they should just bow out of the playoffs right now, because I'm not sure what you're doing here if you can't get it done in this spot. Russ is obviously the play here. And I mean, I will say, yes, he went 3 for 19. The best 3 for 19 performance the NBA has ever seen. I'm pretty sure there's some crazy stats in the playoffs how like a handful of guys have gone 3 for 19 and still found a way to win games. And he's been like 4 of them out of the top 5 to do it. So it's he's very interesting. Obviously, stylistically, he's not going to change his game regardless of the situation around him. And you can respect that. But I mean, I think over 36.5 PRA is good. I think over 21.5 points is fine. And I also like the other guy who's going to step up with Kawhi out now is Eric Gordon. You can get him over 14.5 points at plus money. I think you can get him at over 2.5 threes at plus money as well. You know, he's a pure scorer. Every time he steps on the floor, he's got one goal, and that's to put up shots. He's taken 14 and 12 of them in games 1 and 2 of this series. So this is a really good opportunity for him to step up. And, you know, he's hit at least 3 threes in both games of this series. So with the bump in usage, it's hard to believe he can't get there. Again, now, obviously, if he goes ridiculously cold and, you know, Kawhi's not out there, so the defense doesn't have to pay complete attention to him. But Eric Gordon, the way he plays, he's just running around the perimeter. He takes a lot of deep shots. Guys aren't necessarily contesting him too hard. So it all depends on if he's feeling it on a night-to-night basis. I like him from a DFS perspective as well. I believe he's only 4,600. You know, you could look at guys like Terrence Mann and Bones Highland who could slide into bigger roles, but we know Gordon's going to be on the floor. So from a sports book and a fantasy perspective, I like him. And then Russ is the obvious play.
$8,000. Remember the days, Gary, and right in the middle of the pandemic? And Jeff, you might have been working at DraftKings at this point. It was Russell Westbrook like 12,500. Russell Westbrook 13,000. That was Wizards Westbrook, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I mean, he led that Wizards team to the playoffs. Or was it playing a thing back then? I can't remember.
It was.
Yeah, it was. He was in the play.
Yeah. No, he was great. Look, again, he can do it. I really like what Jeff was saying though in that game, because I think the knee-jerk reaction as soon as you hear Kawhi is out is to go, okay, well, Norman Powell's the play. And I feel like so much has been heaped onto Norman Powell in terms of just like his points total, his 3-pointers total. It is odd Eric Gordon is still kind of hovering around where he probably was. I mean, maybe he would have been like 12.5, 13.5, but there really wasn't sort of that explosion on his points total that you would expect, because I do think he's the number 2 guy, whereas Powell's like 2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, let's mix into baseball before we go, unless you guys have anything else. Futures, anything you guys are looking at now? Like, okay, if I do this now, I grab a little value from an NBA perspective. Anything? Title odds?
I mean, I think you can still get the Kings to make the NBA Finals at decent odds here.
Really?
I've been on. I checked it last night. I believe.
Hold on one second. What's the series price right now on Golden State? It's the plus 140.
That's what I'm saying. The disrespect to the Sacramento Kings is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, how many times do they need to win and prove that they can do it? They've got the most clutch player in the NBA. In the postseason, the clutch, like, that matters the most. And De'Aaron Fox has consistently shown up on that. So that's just one aspect of it.
Games. It's crazy.
He's been incredible. Not just offensively, defensively. He's taken another step too in the postseason. Really, like, look at that, Glash. I mean, what? 9th best odds to win the championship right now, or it's ridiculous. Come on now. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but just to make it there, the West is weak. The Suns clearly aren't as good as we thought they were. Like, they're still probably going to beat the Sacramento Kings if they get there, and they're still a really good basketball team, but they haven't looked like world beaters lately. So the value's still on the Kings until people start to respect them.
You almost, Jeff, want to if Golden State wins tonight, then go get Sacramento.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Just a hunch, the must-win game. I mean, if they go down 3-0, then that number could change very significantly, right? Who knows?
I mean,
it still might be like minus 250 to win the series. Honestly.
I was going to say, with these odds, if Golden State wins this, they might become favorites at this point to win the series.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
That would be, and I've got best bets up from Edlow as well, and he's like, go grab use Golden State. Nick Fryer has good thoughts too. Use Golden State as a money line parlay piece for tonight.
I did see that. That's
one. I'm only
bro.
adding because if that's the case, then you might get, if you wait, if Golden State makes it a series, which I don't know, given all the crap we've seen in 2 games, I feel like it's almost inevitable we're going to get. They'll probably get calls tonight. Whistles will go their way. They're at home. They're going to feel guilty about the Draymond thing, huh?
Conspiracy glasses.
I mean, Warriors money line just feels like the ultimate, respect and legacy play. I need to see them beat this team. The Kings are a much better basketball team than the Warriors. So I need to see it happen first before I'd be willing to take it. I understand the perspective. I understand the logic behind it, but I've been rolling with the Kings and they haven't let me down yet. So why stop, right?
My point, I guess the older players, especially guys like Thompson and Curry that have won, you have a little more clout, and the Kings have overcome that to their credit in first 2 games at home. Gary, what's your baseball play or plays that you have for tonight before you leave?
Let's talk about one because I just think it's really fun. Fernando Tatis Jr.
Oh yeah, he's back. Yeah,
served a 20-game suspension.
It's a big series for Arizona. First place Arizona Diamondbacks. Your big boy here.
For anyone who tailed Steve Buchanan and I on that 72.5 Diamondbacks over. They're
win total, very
really
nice.
Good early.
I sent Bukes a text this morning. I threw a little sprinkle on the Diamondbacks World Series price.
Aggressive, but I like it. I like the intent behind it. They're a young, fun team.
They have a good weekend here against the Padres. That number's coming down.
I don't think it's going to change that much. Things take a lot to change in baseball.
Anywho, continue. I apologize for interrupting you.
But the fun thing with Tatis is the DraftKings Sportsbook has lines on his first plate appearance, exact result of his first plate appearance. And you can bet what he's going to do in his first at bat since October 3rd of 2021. I think was the last time we saw Tatis in a Major League Baseball game. I am leaning with the odds-on favorite, which is an in-play out. That's at plus 155. I know it's kind of the boring take, but it's still plus 155. It's not bad.
What is it again?
Go to the popular bets. Popular bets for this game.
In-play out.
In-play out. So basically, he's going to get out, but he's not going to strike out.
Oh.
Because strikeout is also an option at plus 220. But Ryan Nelson, who's starting this game.
Oh, his first plate appearance. Got it. Okay, yeah. I missed that part. That makes sense.
So Nelson starting this game for the Diamondbacks has thrown 17 innings so far this season. He's faced 40 right-handed batters. Mm-hmm. He's held those batters to a 211 batting average. He has yet to walk a right-handed batter this season. He's also only struck out 15% of the right-handed batters he has faced, which is a pretty low number. So you're very likely for Fernando Tatis Jr. to have a batted ball event in this plate appearance, which means you can cut out strikeout, you can cut out walk, hit by pitch. And I just think that Nelson's been really good against right-handed batters so far this season. His stuff plays well right on right. And again, Tatis hasn't had an actual Major League plate appearance in a year and a half. So I think at plus 155 for him to ground out or fly out, pretty likely chance. It'd be fun if he hit a home run at plus 850. I get that. Maybe he'll do that in his third plate appearance. But that first plate appearance against Nelson, who I think is a pretty good Major League pitcher, I think it's going to end in an in-play out.
Okay. Interesting. I'd add, too, sort of off of your point, bigger picture, keep an eye on his MVP odds. Because if the Padres...
I'll this will take 30 seconds, but I know that's catching some steam right now. I know they've struggled to start, and if he comes back and they
I'm not sharp.
Fire,
go ahead.
Like it's a really easy narrative. That's a voted upon award, and he got caught taking steroids.
Good point.
We know how the writers feel about guys who take steroids, so I would be very careful betting him for National League MVP.
Conspiracy Garian. It's true.
Not a conspiracy. Has played ask Barry Bonds what it's like when you take steroids and have people vote.
Yeah, that's proven. Okay. Fair point. Unless he because
it could happen.
If he has a really good year, then people are going to be like, wait a minute, is he doing it again? He really can't win, to be honest. If he has a great year, he's doing something. If he has a bad year, off the stuff.
And if anyone takes it more seriously than the writers, it's the players, especially now with the era they're in. He's going to have to earn a lot of people's trust back.
All right. So then don't do that, everybody. That's the moral of that short story. Just don't, maybe not do that. That's a good point. In play out, first plate appearance, in play out. That's fun. That is tasty. All right. We got to go. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. For Jeff Pratt, Gary and Thorne, you can find both of them over at DK Nation. They tweet out their plays. They've got plays in the articles over on the DraftKings Nation, over on the DraftKings playbook as well. And enjoy the postseason action tonight for Andrew and Eamon behind the scenes for getting us up and running. Brendan Glasheen, you all have a great Thursday. Enjoy hockey, basketball, baseball. First plate appearance, Fernando Tatis Jr. You all have a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.